Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing no-kill shelters. Our group number is number 1, and in this part of our presentation we will be arguing against no-kill shelters and when saving every animal isn't always humane. My name is Elizabeth Skidmore, and the other presenters are Jasmine Duron, Elizabeth Franson, Brianna Dawn, and Joseph Aquino. Most people think of animal shelters as a place for adoption and cute rescue stories, but that is not how shelters began. Animal shelters in the United States originated in the late 1800s, largely as part of urban public health and safety systems. Cities at the time were struggling with large stray populations and infectious diseases, like rabies, which posed major risks to communities. According to researchers like Stephen Zawintiski and colleagues, these early shelters were not designed with adoption in mind. Their main objection was public safety, not rehoming or rescue. Because of that, euthanasia was considered a disease control measure, not an ethical debate. This public health responsibility still exists today. A great modern example of this balance is Los Angeles Animal Services. They emphasize both rabies prevention and increasing live release outcomes. This demonstrates that shelters have always managed both human and animal welfare, a balance still central to today's conversation. Now, let's talk about the movement that changed everything. The no-kill movement began reshaping sheltering practices in the 1990s, pioneered by leaders like Richard Avanzino, who led major reforms at the San Francisco SPCA. No-kill shifted the priority toward adoption, fostering, and proactive population control through spay and neuter programs. Eventually, organizations like Best Friends Animal Society helped expand the philosophy nationwide. This new model established a moral ideal the public embraced, saving every healthy or treatable animal. However, that shift also introduced challenges many shelters were not yet financially or structurally prepared to solve. Critics of the no-kill approach began raising concerns as shelter intake remained high while housing capacity did not grow at the same pace. Overcrowding increases stress levels, weakens immune systems, and accelerates illness spread. Some shelters now restrict or limit intake in order to maintain high live release statistics, but doing this may unintentionally reject the very animals they aim to protect. The journal, Guidelines for Standards of Care in Animal Shelters, emphasizes that responsible sheltering depends on realistic capacity for care planning. When a shelter takes in more animals than it has resources to support, it can compromise medical, behavioral, and mental well-being, not only for the pets, but also for staff providing care. So opposition to no-kill isn't about lack of compassion, it's about applying compassion responsibly. Humane care must be sustainable, accountable, and rooted in actual welfare, not only in survival statistics. And this brings us to the heart of the disagreement. Is a humane shelter one that preserves as many lives as possible, or one that preserves animal well-being, even if capacity limits require difficult decisions? Both sides deeply care for animals. The difference lies in how they define humane care when funding, space, staffing, or resources are restricted. Researchers like Patricia Turner and Weiss remind us that real welfare includes physical health, medical treatment, enrichment, stress reduction, and emotional well-being. Life matters, but quality of life does too. A humane system should not force animals to survive in poor conditions just to achieve an ideal. The goal shouldn't be keeping animals alive. The goal should be giving animals lives worth living. Now, let's take a look at the ethical reality behind no-kill systems and why many believe responsibility and animal welfare must come before statistics. The no-kill philosophy begins with compassion, saving every life possible. But compassion becomes ethically complicated when shelters lack the space, funding, and staff to meet the needs of every incoming animal. Researchers like Stephen Zawintiski found that millions of pets continue to enter shelters each year, creating population pressure that many facilities are not equipped to handle humanely. Historically, euthanasia wasn't used out of cruelty. It was a response to overpopulation, disease control, and limited capacity. But current ethical debates remind us survival alone is not enough to ensure humane care. Animal welfare experts Turner and Weiss show that animals need medical treatment, emotional support, behavioral care, enrichment, and social contact. When shelters pledge to reject euthanasia without increasing resources, overcrowding leads to stress, fear, illness, and long-term suffering. So we have to ask ourselves, is preserving an animal's life in conditions that harm them mentally or physically always the compassionate choice? Humane care measures success by well-being, not only survival. When shelters struggle under overpopulation, animals can face long-term confinement, leading to fear, frustration, anxiety, biobehavioral distress, and declining welfare, even when they have food and temporary safety. The central ethical question becomes clear. Can life without well-being truly be viewed as humane? Because a shelter system can save lives, but still fail to protect dignity, comfort, mental health, and emotional stability. Real humane care ensures animals are healthy in more than body alone. Some no-kill shelters maintain a 90% save rate by limiting their intake. This practice, while improving internal statistics, shifts suffering outward. Animals turned away often end up abandoned, neglected, or left to unsafe environments with fewer medical or social resources. Organizations like the Journal of Shelter Medicine emphasize that ethical care requires honest capacity for care planning, which should match resources to the number of animals served. A high save rate may look humane, but if animals are rejected at the door, that success may only be symbolic. So we must ask, are we protecting animals or protecting numbers? Because when shelters close intake to preserve optics, animals may suffer elsewhere. Staff face emotional strain, and communities carry the consequences. An ethical shelter system must include transparency, realism, responsibility, sustainable practices, and care that guarantees dignity, not only survival. Overcrowding doesn't only harm animals, it harms caregivers too. Staff burnout, workplace stress, compassion fatigue, and illness outbreaks increase when limits are ignored. And while euthanasia is emotionally difficult for humans, animals don't anticipate death. They experience the world in the moment. For an animal facing irreversible illness, injury, or prolonged suffering without the possibility of relief, euthanasia can be mercy, not failure. True shelter ethics means compassion balanced with realism, honest reporting of outcomes, sustainable intake policies, humane care that protects mental, medical, and emotional welfare, and understanding that humane euthanasia in suffering animals can prevent prolonged distress. Because the goal should never simply be saving every life. It should be ensuring every life saved is a life without suffering.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Duran, and I'll be presenting the cultural and sociological importance slide. So, American culture assumes that pets are held to an emotionally significant standard. They are the animals that society turns to when they need comfort. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of Americans took part in adopting and fostering animals for comfort. In 2021, when the pandemic was over, however, shelters began to overcrowd with more animals. And in 2024, 5.8 million dogs and cats entered shelters and rescues. Overpopulation continues to become an issue for pet shelters as they cannot pertain to every pet's needs, and this is especially true for no-kill shelters. Concerning the sociological importance of animals to humans, it is safe to say that most humans want their pets to pass peacefully. No-kill shelters do not guarantee that all pets will be saved, as some of the shelters turn those away who may hurt their save rate. This in turn leads to the animals passing in a slow death on the streets, a very unethical process that could have been better for them had the shelter just taken them in to help them pass peacefully. In San Antonio, the bodies of nearly 16,000 dogs and almost 12,000 cats were found dead on the street in a year. This completely cancels out the goal that no-kill shelters strive for. It is what most pet owners are against.
Brianna Dunn, and I'll be talking about current events for no-kill shelters. Overcrowded no-kill shelters reach capacity levels. Many USA no-kill shelters reported to record overcrowding this year, especially in states like California and Texas. Animals are staying in kennels for months or even years, leading to stress, illness, and behavioral decline. Shelter directions warn that refusing anesthesia in extreme cases can actually reduce animal welfare. Rise and Shine shelter hoarding cases linked to no-kill policies 2025. Many investigations in 2025 uncovered shelters keeping far too many animals in human conditions to order to maintain a non-kill status. Hoarding-like conditions include unsanitary environments, untreated medical issues, and lack of space or achievement. Experts argue that strict no-kill sometimes push shelters to prioritize saving numbers over quality of life. 2025 veterinarian shortage worsens, delaying critical care for shelter animals with the national vet shortage in 2025. Many shelters cannot access timely medical care. Animals with severe injuries or temporary illness are waiting longer for treatment. Animal welfare organizations emphasize that suffering is not human even if the intent is to save every animal.
Now I want to answer the question of what does it really mean to be a no-kill shelter, and why the label can sometimes work against animal welfare instead of helping it. Originally, the term no-kill was connected with saving and protecting animals. Today, it's usually defined as having at least a 90% live release rate, but that number does not always reflect the full reality. First, no-kill does not mean no euthanasia. Even shelters that call themselves no-kill still use euthanasia when an animal is suffering or when it's too dangerous to the community. In those cases, euthanasia is an act of compassion. The problem isn't the act itself, it's when the label becomes misleading. Second, there is no official organization that determines no-kill status. The 90% rate is only an unofficial guideline. It has changed before, and it could change again, and different shelters interpret it in completely different ways. Because of that, the label is often used more to appeal to the public than to accurately describe an organization's impact. Third, labels can distort the truth. The term no-kill has created a lot of emotion and controversy. If a shelter doesn't show the no-kill label, people assume it must be bad, even if that shelter is working extremely hard to solve problems in its community. And finally, a shelter's admission policy affects whether it can reach the no-kill threshold. Many no-kill shelters are limited admission, meaning they can turn animals away for any reason. This helps them maintain high placement rates. Open admission shelters, on the other hand, take in every animal, even the ones other shelters refuse. They do their best, but with a higher influx of animals, it's much easier for their placement rates to drop. Overall, the label doesn't always represent the whole picture. What really matters is how shelters work to help their animals and their communities.
I'm Joseph Aquino, and I will be covering the acknowledge of material. The earlier slides show that no-kill model can unintentionally cause overcrowding, long-term confinement, and delay medical care. Research and current events underline how saving every animal isn't always humane if shelters ultimately lack space, staffing, and veterinary support. Many no-kill shelters become limited admissions to maintain high save rates, which shifts the burden onto open admission shelters or leaves animals abandoned. The quality of life for not just survival is a key theme throughout the entire presentation, spotlighting why humane outcomes sometimes include euthanasia for suffering or unadoptable animals. Overall, the material underlines that ethical animal care requires balancing compassion with realistic capacity and ensuring animals don't endure unnecessary stress or prolonged suffering.
All in all, no-kill shelters go directly against the moral values that society wants to have, which is a safe and healthy place for all animals. No-kill shelters allow for unhealthy habits and environments such as overcrowding. Overcrowding is a direct cause to animals being turned away and directed to the streets of the city. These kinds of shelters allow for these animals to pass in an immoral and unpeaceful way. In contrast, and another solution is the use of euthanasia. The use of this subject does not necessarily mean that these shelters are not giving these animals a fair chance, but rather that they are giving these pets who are unlikely to be saved a sense of compassion and realism. No-kill shelters do more harm than good. Regular shelters are not killing these animals immorally, but rather giving them a chance to pass away in the least painful way possible. They take into account their feelings as a direct sign of empathy.
Here are the references we used throughout this presentation. Thank you for watching, and feel free to pause here if you'd like to look more closely at any of the sources.